but I knew that I wanted to go to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or anything like that. But I knew I had a passion for cooking, and it kind of took me out of every other element. Like whenever I am working, you know, I was focused, and my PTSD kind of just disappeared, and I was able to function tremendously, you know, high level, you know, in the kitchen. So that's the way I went.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. Where's hometown for you?
Rancho Cucamonga.
So born and raised Southern California?
Yes, sir.
Family also?
Family also, yep.
Any military in your family?
No, I was the first.
Was that a shock to your family?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, so.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a lot of little eyes, you know, looking up to me, and that kind of guided my way to that path to do the right thing.
Any of your other siblings follow your path, go in the military?
Yeah, actually, my brother Aaron, we're only 13 months apart. When I was in Korea, that was my first duty station. He joined, and then we ended up being stationed at Fort Hood together, and then ended up serving later on in Iraq together. But he joined, and then my brother Chad joined, and then my sister Marissa, she joined as well. So my brother Chad, he's still in the military, and my sister Marissa, she's a drill sergeant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
When you decided to go, well, let's go back a little bit. Growing up, did you know early on in life the military is where you were going to go?
Never crossed my mind.
What drew you to it?
Honestly, I was just, I had no direction when I got out of, you know, high school. I was working with my dad, kind of part-time, doing construction, and then was kind of going down that wrong path, you know, and said, you know what, found myself in the hospital from getting jumped, and, you know, was putting myself in, you know, bad positions and scary situations, and said, you know what, it's time to move forward, especially, like I said, being the oldest of 8 kids. I wanted to do something positive, and that's the way it went.
And what made you choose the Army?
I had no preference over one or the other. I think it's because I didn't have any family that served, you know, prior to, so I didn't have a preference over, you know, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, something like that. So it was the first one that I kind of did research on, and went to the recruiter, signed up against my parents, you know, their, what do you call it? Their wishes. Yeah.
They weren't really supportive of it.
Not so much. So
when you had that conversation, was it a difficult conversation with your parents, or did they get over it quickly and become supportive?
My mom, she had her emotional days, you know, like the closer I got to leaving the boot camp, you know, you'd find her crying or something like that, or just get done crying, and she'd act like she wasn't, you know. But other than that, they were very supportive.
What year did you go in?
2003.
And when you went in, what was your plan? Were you thinking, I'm going to do my 20 full career?
Not at all. I went in with no plan. I just wanted to go in there and kick ass, you know, and do the best I could.
So you're basically looking for just something to turn that corner to get you out of the life that you had been in.
Exactly.
You were starting to see that path wasn't the greatest for you.
Right.
So what then changed it to where, because you ended up spending how many years in the Army?
12 years.
Obviously re-enlisted at least once or twice.
Yeah, I found out I really loved it, you know, and that was a part of me that that'll always be a part of me, is the military. I love the Army. But yeah, I had no desire to, actually, when my enlistment came back up, I was like, nah, I'm done with it. You know, at first I was like, because I think I was spending a lot of time away, you know, from my family, and my son, he was just a little baby at the time, so that had a big impact on it.
Now, you mentioned being stationed in Korea. Where else did you get, or where did you spend most of your time?
Most of my time was at Fort Hood with 1st Cav, and then did a couple deployments from there. And then from there I went to Fort Carson, was with the 10th Special Forces Group, and then to Fort Irwin. That's where I was medically retired out of.
So going into the medical retirement aspect, what ended up happening?
Throughout those deployments, couple injuries, back injuries, and then PTSD, TBI, things like that had an impact on some things that obviously my job in the military, so I wasn't able to do that anymore. So
Were those, so there are two aspects there. There's the issue, the mental issue, and then there's the physical.
right.
The back issues and that aspect,
Mhm.
would that have been anything that you could have overcome and stayed in? Or do you think those were significant enough injuries that you probably would have transitioned out anyway?
I probably would have ended up transitioning out anyways.
As far as the mental health aspect of it,
Mhm.
did you recognize it right away, or did you try to ignore the symptoms early on? And when I say recognize it, more of, did you give into it or acknowledge, hey, there's some issues going on here?
Not so much. I think when I was living in it, I didn't realize how much of an effect that it was actually having on me. You know, living with PTSD, I didn't go to any counseling or anything like that. I decided to drink a ton. And that obviously is a very bad route to go, you know, for many different reasons. But number one, having PTSD. Number two, having a drinking problem. They don't mix very well, you know, with the military, with family, with your health, you know. So I'm actually glad that it did go this way, because if I stayed in the military, now that I look back, you know, I wouldn't have taken care of myself the way that I did once I got out. So
Do you think you were trying to drown the PTSD in alcohol, or did you equate the two of them together?
I equated the two together for sure. Yeah.
How long were you in that cycle before you actually sought help?
Well, I sought help when I was in Colorado for the first time. I did an intensive outpatient treatment. And that was after I took a bottle full of pills and, you know, tried to take my own life, and got help for that. And then in return was, you know, that kind of like a byproduct, I was getting help for drinking as well, because that was a part of what got me there, you know, in that mindset. So
Was this after you were out or while you were still active?
I was still active at the time. Yeah.
Something that extreme of a treatment, is it something you have to push for yourself, or will they suggest you to go to it?
They suggested me to go to it. It wasn't doing anything for me, and I was still drinking daily, and even in the program, you know, technically you weren't supposed to be drinking while you're in the program, but, you know, the real drinkers that were there were still drinking, you know. And I actually did at one time ask for help even more, and was like, hey, this isn't really helping. I really need to get like into like a facility, like a inpatient, and they refused it. And I was blown away, and I was really trying to get the help that I needed, because at the time, you know, my marriage was down the tubes and everything else, and I wasn't seeing my kids like I was, you know, I should have been, because of that. And so it had a really big impact on me, and I was trying to get that help that I needed. And I honestly, I'm not trying to, you know, bash the military or anything, but they really did not do what they were supposed to when somebody was asking for help, because then, you know, I kept drinking, like I said, and then I ended up PCSing to Fort Irwin, and I had some people that were concerned about me, you know, noticing showing up to formations, you know, smelling like alcohol and stuff like that. Just like the general, you know, people cared about me enough to say something to me, you know.
Did it ever get bad enough to where you were actually disciplined for it?
No, thank God. But at the same time, it was more, if you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen, you know. So I ended up going to 30 days inpatient treatment in San Diego. And it was a great program, and felt great, you know, in it. And I got out 30 days later, and I started drinking again the day I got out, you know. so that didn't help like it should have.
Had you always been a heavy drinker?
Not to that extent, no. It was more like, when you're younger, you go out and you party with your friends and stuff like that, have barbecues, party, drink, whatever. But it started getting pretty significant where I was really drinking to stop the shakes and things like that. I'd be at work, literally just shaking because I haven't had anything to drink, And and that's a big part of the transition. Like when I got out, that was the hardest thing because I went straight for the bottle again. To go from that structured military lifestyle where you were a somebody, to you get out, nobody even knows who you are, gives, anything about what you did or where you came from.
Right.
So that little gap kind of took me down on a really bad path. And then thank God I enrolled in the Cordon Bleu. That kind of took me where I was more focused on school.
Not trying to jump too far ahead yet. We'll get there.
Okay, gotcha.
Going back to the military, though, a little bit.
Yeah.
When you finally realized that you needed help, and it's got to be a huge hurdle to get over to actually ask for help. Did you feel that you were supported in that decision, or did you get any flack for it, or kind of not supported?
It was very supportive. Yeah. It was very supported. My first sergeant, Jeff Jackson, I'll never forget him. He a very big impact in my life. Just the way that he carried himself, just a genuine person, cared about his soldiers. Came and visited me, pretty frequently when I was down in San Diego, all the way up from Fort Irwin, just to see how I was doing. I still talk to him today. He lives here in Temecula, actually. So
Kismet.
Yeah.
When going through this, if you could go back in time,
yeah,
what were some of the early warning signs that maybe you ignored, that if somebody's in those same shoes, shouldn't be ignoring those today?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that it just, when you find yourself always looking for that bottle, man, like for me, it was just, when I was in that moment, you didn't think about it. It wasn't a problem. It didn't have it didn't have an effect on my work. It didn't, I was always on time. I was always early, actually. I was always doing a 300 PT. I was excelled at what I did. So I didn't think that the drinking was that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? And, until you really get told that you have cirrhosis at 34, nothing like that ever even comes to your mind, how severe that every single day when you go home, just to have that drink, just to go to sleep, or, if you had a bad day and you had a ton of, triggers and, your mind's all over the place and you just want to have something to calm you down, and it's that drink, but, years and years and years later, once you keep doing that, your body can only take so much, abuse.
So when you were talking about getting to the point, though, where you actually needed alcohol to calm the shakes.
Right.
How many years into this are we now? Or as far as your military career?
Towards the end, probably 10 years in.
Are you starting to realize at this point that maybe you're not going to be able to make it an entire career? Did it become obvious to you early on, or did you maybe try to fight it longer?
I definitely try to fight it longer.
You talked about how your first sergeant was very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever at that time early on where anybody was coming to you and saying, hey, we're seeing this, and you made excuses for it?
No, not really. Because I wasn't really like a closet drinker, but I didn't drink around anybody else that I really worked with. You know what I mean? I kind of kept it to myself.
So except for maybe like when it really got at its worst,
mm-hmm.
the shakes, you were able to put on that front that appeared like everything was good to go.
Absolutely.
And so your transition out occurred what year?
2014.
Now you already alluded to it was not the best transition for you, but what kind of happened with that? Did you have a plan of what you were going to do going forward?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any plans. I got out and I stayed with my uncle for about a year when I was going to the Cordon Bleu, and but I knew that I wanted to go to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or anything like that. But I knew I had a passion for cooking, and it kind of took me out of every other element. Like whenever I am working, I was focused, and my PTSD kind of just disappeared, and I was able to function tremendously, high level, in a kitchen. So that's the way I went.
I definitely want to get into that. Let me just hit on one more thing then. How did you finally get your drinking under control?
I got sick. God said, that's enough, man, because I knew that, or he knew I wasn't going to do it on my own. This is what I, personally feel. And so I got sick in November of 2018. So my last drink was actually on November 11th, Veterans Day, and it happened to be my retirement date as well, 2018, so 3 years ago.
The after effects of that, did it have long-term ramifications, or basically once you stop drinking, your body can start repairing itself?
No. Unfortunately, with cirrhosis, it's damage that's irreversible in the liver. I mean, obviously, it regenerates itself, right? It's the only organ in the body that does that. But once you get cirrhosis, it's that's the irreversible damage. So there are long-term ramifications for it. I do have to go get endoscopies done very frequently, every 6 months. And just to keep an eye on my varicose veins. I've had 2 ruptures, which actually I almost died from both times. And that was because of sugar, actually. Go figure, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I stopped drinking, and I ended up attaining like this really bad sweet tooth. I think just a substitute for the alcohol or something, So I was eating a ton of candy. And it's just as bad for your liver as alcohol. So bad deal.
But basically, don't take your body to that nth degree.
No.
Kind of look at some of the early warning signs and maybe pull off that freeway a little bit earlier.
Yes, absolutely.
So where did the joy of cooking come from?
From when I was young. I think everybody really has that memory of cooking with their grandma, or somebody important to them that started that passion when they were such a little kid. That was me.
And did you have a specialty in mind that you wanted to focus on?
Anything and everything, really, because I think that every type of food and cuisine, you can put your own spin on it and take it in the direction that you want to.
Were you always cooking even while you were in the military?
Oh yeah.
Were you that guy in the unit that was cooking for everybody?
I was that guy. Yep. Barbecuing, out in the snow and stuff like that, and you betcha.
So deciding to go to school, where is Le Cordon Bleu?
Well, there was a campus in LA, and then after the class after me, then they had shut them all down. The only one that's open, I believe, is in Paris, France. So no more stateside locations on the United States.
So you were basically the last class to do it in the United States?
Pretty much, yeah.
What caused them to close down?
Probably money. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But
and how long is that program?
It was a 2-year program.
How intensive?
It was pretty intensive. I mean, I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
What's it take? What are the requirements to get into that? I mean, I would imagine you can't just walk in the door and go, I really like to cook.
That's kind of what I did, actually. I mean, they had like a little test that you take, just to see your general knowledge of, culinary and stuff. But I did on the GI Bill, which is nice. So that paid it 100%. And I still had some left over to continue my business degree. So, yeah, it was good. I was commuting a little bit from Riverside to LA every day, but it was worth it.
Now, when you got done with that, was your plan to go into a traditional restaurant environment?
I was at first I wanted to be a private chef. And then I did my externship at Red Hill Country Club in Rancho Cucamonga. It's a golf course there. and we did banquets and, big parties. We had a dinner service, a lunch service, breakfast on the weekends. So we were pretty busy, but it was a good thing that I did do my externship there, because I actually found out what it was really like to work in that type of, environment at a country club. Being open on the weekends, they work late hours, early mornings. You're talking like 16-hour days, with very minimal pay. So
it has a huge impact on a family, I'd imagine.
Huge. Yeah. Even just that time that I was doing my externship there, I was hardly ever home, so I was like, this is not going to be the route that I'm going to be able to go. So that's why I started thinking about doing my own business.
And fast forward today, you have your own business. Give it a plug.
Yeah. Stars and Stripes BBQ. Now,
what's it take to start your own, well, just barbecue, but a food related business?
Well, certifications, obviously, and for food handler's card or manager certificate that I carry as well. And I just incorporated it, in 2020. So just went through all those, that whole process of doing the county, the city, and getting the permits and all that kind of stuff, and your business license. And, that's pretty much it. It wasn't that difficult to actually get it started up and running.
Are you running mobile, or are you doing a storefront location? Right
now I'm doing mobile. I do catering mostly, and I'm actually starting to go the direction of meal prep. So I'm doing sports nutrition class right now to be a certified sports nutritionist, and kind of want to incorporate nutrition plans along with meal prep plans, and with my cooking expertise as well. I mean,
I'm chuckling only because I don't think in any sports nutrition plan the first item on the list is barbecue.
And see, that's why I'm going there with it, because you don't see that anywhere. Why not?
Yeah, but how do you work in the mac and cheese and the baked beans and all the stuff that's not necessarily the healthiest?
Yeah. You look for different, substitution options, and that's another thing I was dabbling in a little bit. I started doing plant-based culinary school online, and just to get, brushed up on that area of the non-meat eaters.
I don't know if you're going to be able to convince many people to go towards plant-based from barbecue.
I'm going to try.
Salad with barbecue sauce.
I'll give it a valiant effort, but I think I can do it.
How has cooking, though, helped you as far as keeping you grounded?
Oh, I love it. I think it really helps me explore, my imagination a little bit, my creativity, side of it. And even the managerial part of it, working with my family has been really, really great, and teaching my sons, how to run a business, the important things of doing things ahead of time. And, because my wife's going to laugh when she hears me say that, because I'm like the worst when it comes to that, but I'm learning, by doing this, how to properly, run a successful business like this, and going into it with never doing it before was pretty terrifying. Our first event that we did, but we worked it out, and we learn every single time that we go out and do it again. So it's been fun.
Your kids enjoying helping?
They love it. Yeah. They just did an event with us, what was it? What are we in? December, last month, for my wife's CrossFit gym in Rancho. They did a little ladies painting night thing, and we did a Italian dinner for them, and it was awesome. It turned out beautiful.
You think any of your kids are going to go towards the culinary world?
Possibly, maybe. I think maybe Eddie might.
That's cool,
because he loves cooking. He's always asking a lot of questions, and actually all of them do. So you never know.
So if you cross over into the meal prep business, that's still something though that you can do from your home. Or will you actually venture into an actual restaurant at that point in
time? Depending on the capacity of what I'm doing. Once I start getting bigger and bigger, I might have to rent a test kitchen or something like that, or to be able to do mass production. But I'm going to try and start small, a smaller clientele. There's a gym that is a part of Ota Country. It's called Raw Performance, and it's in El Segundo. And the owner there, she's a therapist that works with veterans and first responders, from Ota Country, and does therapy for them. But she owns her own gym, off there, and she was like, "Hey, if you want, you do a test with me. Bring over your refrigerator and keep it stocked." And I was like, "Right on." So,
well,
we'll go that route and see where it goes from there.
Cool. I wish you the best with it. That's a nice segue too, though. Talking about Oath to Country. So when you got out, was your goal always to then work back and work with veterans?
It was not. I think when I found FrontSight Military Outreach first, right? So like when I was going through the whole transition part, I came across them. I was going to church, and my son found like a flyer in one of the hallways or something. He's like, "Hey, Dad, check this out." And I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, cool." And I had a really rough day, that I was going through, and decided, hey, I'm just going to call these guys and see what they're about, So called them up, and then they're like, "Yeah, hey, come on down. Well, just check us out, see what's going on, So I went down there one day and really felt, like that camaraderie that I was missing with military. I just walked in, they had all this military stuff up, and Octavio and Chris, there's a Marine and an Army guy that run the place, and just very welcoming, loving guys, and just reminded me of my brothers, when I was in the military, man. Just, it was awesome. So I had that instant connection with them, and was a part of their veterans car show, was able to set up a booth there and sponsored that, with them. And that was a lot of good times there. Met Oath to Country. Justin was there. He's the guy who started Oath to Country. That's how I met him.
So going back to FrontSight, are they specifically PTSD or just veteran support?
It's veterans, first responders. It's open to everybody. It's a faith-based military group that they help with VA, issues. If you're having any, VA problems, Chris is really good with helping, guys out with that. And they do tons of outreach stuff, Toys for Tots, and we just had a toy drive last Friday. They were doing that for the kids there, and it was a good time. They do a lot of great things for the community and for military and families.
I've heard this before, that once military members are on their way out, there tends to be, I'll call them problems with the VA and getting kind of into the system with the VA and getting everything they need. Did you experience that also?
Not so much. I did with had some pay problems and stuff like that, but that got rectified pretty quickly. But other than that, no. I've heard some pretty bad stories with people's records getting pretty jacked up. When they get out, things getting taken off of their disability ratings, and for whatever reason, so they have to get it added back on, which that should never happen, in my opinion.
But you were able to basically avoid those hand grenades and kind of get through it pretty smoothly?
Yeah.
So FrontSight was kind of your first delving into veteran support.
Right.
Allowed you to meet Oath to Country and Justin, the founder of it. Mm-hmm. Explain the path afterwards, and because you're pretty deep in with Oath to Country now.
Right. So Justin, he asked me to keep coming to these events that he was doing, like the 22 mile. I love challenges. So when he told me that he was doing a 22-mile run with 22 pounds for 22 veterans that commit suicide every day, right, from PTSD, I said, I'll be there. I don't care where it's at. Sign me up, And I kid you not, I had an endoscopy done the day before of that run.
Great prep before that.
Great prep, right? I was there, So we started doing things like that, and I loved his energy. I loved his motivation, his heart, his passion, his compassion, and everything that was about him. I wanted to be a part of it, So I jumped on board 100%, and I was like, hey, what can we do to raise some money, So we started using, Stars and Stripes. We did some fundraising events, some barbecue events, just did, $10 plates, and had really good turnouts. We did a softball tournament, we did one outside of his uncle's garage in Monrovia, and we did one on Memorial Day in Santa Monica Pier. That was a big one too.
So what's the main mission of Oath to Country?
So the main mission for Oath to Country is to provide resources for veterans, first responders, to combat their mental health, PTSD. We have a therapist, a part of our, she's not a board member, but she's a dedicated therapist that is taking on some of, our clients or, veterans or first responders to go to her for counseling. And she provides them therapy, working out in the gym and stuff like that as well. And we pay for that. So we pay for their services. And then we also do an outreach for the homeless veterans out by the Veterans Row outside the VA hospital in LA.
So if somebody's transitioning out, how soon should they reach out to Oath to Country as far as should they reach out even if they don't perceive they're having any issues?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Cause we have a lot of different organizations as well that we're connected to that can help out with, employment or, a couple rehab facilities. If you are getting out and you have a drug or alcohol problem, we can send you there for free, one in Pomona, some couple like local areas as well. So if we don't have that directly, that service that we can provide, then we have other nonprofits or people that we work with that we can actually send them to and still get that help at no cost.
And what's been the ancillary help for you being back involved helping veterans?
Just being connected and giving back, honestly, is just, being a part of any kind of community that involves veterans, like-minded people like me that would only understand certain things that we go through on a daily basis. To me, that's just the biggest thing, is just to surround yourself around a community that understand you.
Do you still struggle with your PTSD
every day?
Daily?
Daily. Yeah. It gets easier, and I was blessed to have, a service dog given to me by an amazing organization called Working Dogs for Warriors, and about a year ago, and just does tremendous things. The value that he brings it to not just me, but my family, and the value that the life that I can live now just by going out and about. He's trained to watch my back. He's like my security, he picks up on everything that I'm going through. If I'm having a rough day, he knows it, he knows how to get me out of it, and it's pretty cool.
You may have heard, for the listeners, the dog shaking his head a couple of minutes ago. So his name is Hero, correct?
His name's Hero, yeah.
He's with us in the studio today. How did you figure out that that's what you needed?
I didn't know. I went off of somebody else's testimony who had a service animal, another veteran of mine that I went to school with. And, he just told me how much value that the dog brought to him, the comfort, because the depression, anxiety, and all these things that we deal with every day, anger, stuff like that. It's amazing what these animals can do, just completely change your mindset from one thing to the next, at a drop of a hat. It's awesome.
Well, he's a great dog. Who provided you? What's the company that provides these dogs?
Working Dogs for Warriors. They get they get dogs donated as well. He was donated by Rancho Cucamonga Labradors, I believe, is the name of the company. But they donated one puppy, I believe, per litter to them, and then we get other donations as well, or they do for dogs.
Now, reaching out to them, what's the process between you seeking assistance and asking for a dog and actually getting placed with one?
Well, for me, it was, they'll you'll conduct an interview, see if you'll be a good candidate, and then they'll look at your duty 214, then they'll have you have your counselor, your therapist, write a letter of recommendation that they would recommend that a service animal would be, beneficial for whoever the service member is or first responder.
And you said there's ongoing training that's required?
Yeah, it's 360 hours of training that's involved. So once a week we go to the training facility in Rialto and we do an hour of training.
And that will end at 360, or there will always be ongoing training?
To be a certified, for him to be a fully certified service dog, he'll have 360. But then after that, the training always continues just to keep him, on top of all of his training that he has to do. So, because he has to pass certain tests along the way.
And so going forward, or going backwards a little bit, what advice do you give to somebody transitioning out, that realizing that they're dealing with some issues and maybe they're not admitting to it?
Just don't be afraid to ask for help. It's so cliche, that people always say that. And it is, that's really the hardest part. That's why people don't do it. Right. But how else are you going to get through what you're going through without any help? If you're not going anywhere but backwards, just surround yourself by good people. That's my biggest thing, is surrounding yourself by people that really care about your well-being. And, it's a battle buddy system that we always have in the military. And that's what, I found now. And that's what I have now. I have, a whole network of people that I can call, at any time, day or night. And they would answer the phone, no matter what. And they would go, bend over backwards no matter what I needed or my family needed. They would be there, vice versa. I would do the same thing for any of my friends.
Well, and you're unfortunately a great example of somebody who tried to deal with it themselves to the point that it almost killed you.
Correct.
So, do you think the stigma is going away, or do you think it's still there as far as in the military, as far as asking for help?
I think it's, from what I see now, like with the guys that I'm interacting with, pretty regularly, they're all open, and we all talk about certain things. It might just be with that one person, or it might just be with that one group of guys that, we all feel comfortable enough to talk about certain things. But I think overall that it is starting to open up a lot. And I've been, noticing a lot of things on like Instagram, even, other veteran groups, I guess that you can call them, that are starting to put that message out there. Special operations guys are putting that message out there, and that's usually not the ones that you would hear that from. Those are the more silent, kind of guys that deal with it themselves.
Right.
Right. Or have that one or two persons, that they talk to about. But putting it out there in public, I'm starting to see that a lot more, which is awesome.
Well, and the thing is the old days of, hey, just suck it up and deal with it.
Right.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
And too many, men and women have just completely lost their lives trying to deal with it in silence. And, if anybody can be a voice for moving it forward, it doesn't matter if you're special forces. It doesn't matter if you were a guy changing tires.
Doesn't matter.
If you're dealing with something, be that voice, because you never know who you're going to have an impact on.
Yes.
He just laid on my foot. For those not watching this, Kiro's a big yellow lab, and he just actually laid his head right on my foot. Kind of threw me off for a second. How important do you think it is to get? It's one thing to want that camaraderie, and to a degree, we all need that camaraderie in moving forward. Mm-hmm. But how much can staying in that bubble be a negative for dealing with mental health and kind of getting out of that, from your experience?
You can get stuck in the past. You really can't start dwelling on it too much, and I find myself doing that sometimes, where you're just like, man, you're not there anymore. Why are you still thinking about it? Why are you still going back and dwelling on certain things? I always want to, better myself at least just a little, one step forward every single day, never go backwards. And then when you start doing that, you just have to really reel yourself in, do a self-check on yourself, and make sure that you're still going forward and never going backwards,
Did you ever find that any of the counseling or assistance you did seek out didn't work for you?
Yeah, the counselings that didn't work for me were counselings that I was speaking to, to a civilian who couldn't really relate to me. That was my biggest thing.
So the point I'm trying to get with this is that getting counseling is a process, and you're not going to connect necessarily with the very first counselor you talk to.
Right.
It could be somebody who's got no military experience that is ultimately the one that you connect with the best.
Right.
And what I'm trying to bring out here is that it's got to be a process of evaluation. So if you go into this counseling session and it doesn't, I'm going to use the term work for you, it may not necessarily be because counseling is not going to work for you. It's just going through that process of, okay, I didn't connect with this counselor. Let me go talk to somebody else. Don't just give up on counseling because the first session didn't work or what you perceive as work.
No, absolutely. And then it's about your mindset and your attitude as well going into the counseling, because when you're closed-minded about counseling altogether, I don't want to do counseling. Everybody has that. I don't need to talk to anybody, man. If you have that attitude right off the bat, you're not gonna want to hear anything. You're not gonna want to talk. You're not gonna get anything out of it because you're not there mentally, And I think that you really have to hit a breaking point to a certain extent to say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to let somebody in at some point, because I can't talk to this person about it. I can't talk to this person about it because, you might think that they're going to look at you differently, of certain things that you might have done, overseas, or things that you've seen, or whatever the case is, right? Whatever it is. You don't want that person to look differently at you, whether it be your wife or your kids, or your mom or your dad, or somebody that you usually can confide in. There are certain situations that I would never, or I wouldn't say never. I have a hard time even saying verbally, right? But when you do it with that stranger, that counselor, for the first time, holy crap. You never think that you would ever get to that point, but when you do, it's such a release. It's like that valve, oh my gosh, that weight just is lifted. And then that's when, for me anyways, that's when it just hit me. This is what I need. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. This is what I need. I just need to talk about it. What the heck? And it's just finding that person, like you're right, because it's very frustrating when you're not ready mentally to do it. It's frustrating because you can go through counselors like left and right. That didn't work. You know why? Because you didn't even say or do anything. You didn't even try. You have to really have that mental openness and just readiness just to go in there and fire away, man. And I think if you do that without thinking about it too much, that's what you really need to do, is just go out there and just do it. And it feels so good when you do. So much better. It's life-changing.
It's being open to it. It's being open to letting that person take you down the path you're going to need to go.
Yeah.
It goes back to that thing of, you can't go into a counselor and then think that, well, I'm just not going to open up. I'm not going to tell them everything, because you're basically back to trying to deal with it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And where did that get you?
Any last advice for anybody transitioning that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I would just say, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be tough. You're going to go, you might feel alone a lot, depending on what your path is when you do get out. And if you have a plan, always have a plan. That's another thing too. Don't go out there without a plan, because that's just going to add a whole lot more stress and anxiety to the stress and anxiety that you carry around with you every day anyways, So, and a support system, get connected with with the veteran program or nonprofit within the area, wherever you live. I don't know. I'm sure there's somewhat similar nonprofits and vet, centers throughout the country like we have here. But that's what I would suggest, is just surround yourself with like-minded people, find a good community, and just stay focused, stay connected, and don't ever give up. Get help if you need it, and especially if you're relying on, other substances to get you through those hard times, just go talk to somebody and, put the bottle down, man, because it'll get you, Like I said, cirrhosis at 34, I never would have thought. But here you are today, and I just hope that, somebody else can take that different path,
And on the positive side, Stars and Stripes BBQ. You do catering, correct?
Yeah. Do catering and meal prep.
And how can people find you?
On Instagram, Stars_Stripes BBQ, and or email paratrooper7771@gmail.com if you have any questions, or would like to book at an event or meal prep services or anything like that.
And I'll go ahead and include both those addresses in the show notes.
Cool. Thank you.
I appreciate your time, sir.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Paul.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.